All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. This is a weekend update edition. So we're going to go through all of our normal weekly charts. We're going to take a look at year to date and a bunch of other things. In addition to that, I want to talk about something specifically that I think is going to put a little bit of short-term pressure on the price of Bitcoin, but I'm also going to show you another chart that shows you why I don't think it's a big deal. Lastly, we're going to talk about some of the January operational reports that some of the Bitcoin miners put out. We did get 4 reports last week. I expect to get the rest of them this week. So when we have all of the reports, we will update and do our monthly analysis comparing all of the operational results for the month of January. Okay, so a bunch to go through. Before we get started, if I could ask everybody to please smash the like button. And also I want to thank everybody. We're going to go for 700 likes on this video. You guys have been doing an unbelievable job of smashing the like button, and it really does help the video out a lot, and it helps the channel out a lot. So I wanted to say thanks, and I appreciate that a lot. And of course, if you're new here, we talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners all the time. If you have not yet subscribed, you can also consider hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a video. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Okay, before we get to our regular charts, I just want to show you something really quickly. All right, if we take a look, this is a chart of the top Bitcoin mining companies by production from the month of December. This is technically the top 11 Bitcoin miners. So you're going to see 4 of those Bitcoin miners have reported results for the month of January. And in all 4 instances, production is down. In 3 of the 4 cases, in the case of CleanSpark, Cypher, and Bitfarms, production is actually down 20% month over month. Some of this is accounted for by the fact that December was a little bit unusually high because fees were very high, which obviously is good for Bitcoin miners. But more so, most of the Bitcoin mining companies are reporting that they are having to curtail in the month of January based on weather. And this includes all the way from, Bitfarms, which is up in Canada, all the way down to Cypher, which has the majority of their mining in Texas. So there seems to be cold weather all around. There seems to be a lot of curtailment going on. So we're going to keep a close eye on this. Like I said, most of the rest of the Bitcoin miners will report their results this week. So we will see if this trend continues. I suspect that the vast majority of the Bitcoin miners, I actually think all 11 of these companies will probably have mined less Bitcoin in the month of January than they did in December. When we get the final results, we'll do our monthly comparison, so you can expect that video maybe a week from now. But I just want to take a quick heads up and let you guys know this is what's going on so far. Okay, let's get to our normal charts. All right, these are the Bitcoin miners week over week. So you're going to see most of the Bitcoin miners were red this week. This was another not so good week for the Bitcoin miners. If we take a look, you're going to see, as always, in gold, you're going to see Bitcoin was up 2% this week. Bitcoin's been trading in a range between about 41,000 and 44,000 for just about 2 full months now. So there have not been big fluctuations in Bitcoin. When we get to some later charts, you're going to see there have been big fluctuations in the Bitcoin miners. This is another week that's pretty much a down week. Now, there were a few exceptions that are worth talking about. TeraWulf was up 5%. They were in the green. CleanSpark was up 3%. So those two outperformed Bitcoin by just a little bit. Marathon, which has been a very strong performer, they are the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap by far at this point. They were up 2% on the week. BitDeer was up 1%, and then Riot was down only 1%, so very close to 0. And you're going to see a few of these were down a little, but there is a big group of these that were down between 11 and 22%. Most of this group are the smaller Bitcoin miners, but a few worth noting that are mid-sized Bitcoin miners. Iris Energy was down 11%, and HUT was down 14%. So this was another tough week. If we put that in perspective year to date, you're going to see that the Bitcoin miners are all in the red year to date. Bitcoin as of Friday was up 2% year to date. So Bitcoin continues, like I said, to trade pretty much sideways, but the Bitcoin miners, some of these are down pretty dramatically. There's an entire group down over 40%. Any, HUT, Core Scientific, Iris Energy, Argo Blockchain, and Gree are all down between 41 and 49%. Even the ones near the top of this list. Marathon's down 23%, Bitfarms is down 23%, CleanSpark down 25%, Riot down 28%. The last few days of 2023, the Bitcoin miners started this trajectory downward, and you're going to see if I zoom out just a few days more, these numbers get even worse. Okay, so here's the same chart, and I'm just going back really just 3 days earlier to December 27th. In that period of time, Bitcoin's down 1%, but you'll see the Bitcoin miners down even more dramatically. So this is now about 5.5 weeks of the Bitcoin miners moving in a downward direction while Bitcoin continues to go sideways. So when we look at the chart this way, you're going to see there's a bunch of these down around 60%. Gree down 59%. Hut, Stronghold, and Iris Energy are all down 60%. Somewhere from the middle of August through the middle of October, there was about a 14-week period where the Bitcoin miners behaved very similarly. They dramatically underperformed Bitcoin. However, by the end of the year, they actually had caught up. So when you take a look at the year 2023, it was a very green year, but there was a 14-week period that looks an awful lot like this 5.5-week period. So one of the things I'm taking a look at is, I don't know how long this is going to last. So I just try to put in perspective that we're 5.5 weeks into this, and the same thing happened last year, and it lasted 14 weeks. So again, this is another thing we'll keep our eye on. Have the Bitcoin miners started to bottom out? Are they going to go sideways? Can we get a little consolidation? Can we start to move back in the right direction? So for me personally, I'm very bullish on a lot of these Bitcoin miners. So that's why I show you some of these charts. When we take a look at this 5.5 weeks, some of these big moves to the downside may be presenting opportunities. So I try to bring you guys these charts every single week, in addition to a bunch of other charts, so that we can look at this in as many different ways possible. And that's my goal, is to try to see, is there an opportunity in here somewhere? Is there a Bitcoin miner that operationally is performing very well, but the stock is getting beat up? You can see all these stocks are getting beat up. The best performing stock on this list is down 31%. That's DigiHost, and all of the rest of them are down even more than that. So Marathon, which is the largest by market cap, they are down 41% in this 5.5 weeks. Riot is down 40% in these 5.5 weeks. So you're going to see, really, you can find your Bitcoin miner or Bitcoin miners that you're invested in, or the ones that you're interested in potentially investing in, and you can take a look. You can see these are big moves to the downside. Okay, so this is another time frame I like to take a look at. This is comparing all the Bitcoin miners as of Friday versus their highs in the middle of the year last year. All the Bitcoin miners hit a local high on or around July 14th. So you can see when we take a look at this chart, Bitcoin is up 42% from that same day, whereas almost all of the Bitcoin miners are in the red. Only 4 Bitcoin miners are now higher than they were on July 14th. So whereas Bitcoin was up 42%, CleanSpark's up 20%, Bitfarms is up 14%, DMG 5%, and Marathon up 1%. Those are the only Bitcoin miners in the green since July 14th. All the rest of the Bitcoin miners are still lagging significantly. So again, this is just another time frame I'm looking at. Lastly, we'll just take a quick look. This is comparing all the Bitcoin miners to their previous high from the peak of the last bull market. So that is November of 2021. So we're in a similar situation. Every single Bitcoin miner is deeply in the red since then. So although Bitcoin's up about 150% from its lows, it's still down 38% from the peak of the previous cycle. So I am expecting Bitcoin to take out its all-time high sometime in the year 2024, in my opinion. So I want to be crystal clear. I don't know the future. This is not financial advice. So, that's one of the core underlying things that you should be asking yourself if you're interested in investing in the Bitcoin miners, or if you are invested in the Bitcoin miners. Where do you think Bitcoin is going? Because that is the number one factor that's going to determine how these Bitcoin miners perform from a stock standpoint. Nobody knows when or if Bitcoin is going to regain its previous all-time highs. So again, I try to show you guys as many charts as I can for you guys to have information and do your own due diligence and make your own decisions on, whether or not you think Bitcoin or any of these Bitcoin miners might be something that you're interested in investing in. I just also like to take a brief look at this chart every time, just to remind everybody that by the end of the year last year, this is the 1-year chart for the year 2023. So you're going to see in 2023, Bitcoin was up 154%. You'll see that in gold. The one thing worth noting on this list is the entire list is green, which means every single Bitcoin miner was up in the year 2023. A lot of these were up dramatically. Cypher, 638%. You're going to see Marathon, which is the largest Bitcoin miner, was up 587%. Bitfarms, 561%. Iris Energy, 472%. It's one of the reasons that we hit a local peak, kind of had a blow off top, and we are having a big pullback and a little bit of consolidation. So again, this is not the first time this happened. even inside of these gigantic green numbers, there was a 14-week period where all the Bitcoin miners were deeply in the red. So my point of all this is the Bitcoin miners are extremely volatile. We talk about this all the time on the channel. So, if you're the type of investor that does not like volatility or can't handle massive swings, then, that should be something that you consider as to whether or not you want to invest in the Bitcoin miners. In a little bit of news, there continues to be selling pressure on Bitcoin coming from all different directions. So the latest and greatest is this is an article from February 3rd. Genesis asks the bankruptcy court to approve a $1.4 billion sale of GBTC, which is the Grayscale Bitcoin, what was the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust and is now their ETF. So $1.4 billion, that's somewhere, between around 30,000 Bitcoin. Obviously, in all likelihood, they're not just going to dump all these in one day, but this is about 30,000 Bitcoin that's probably going to have to come back onto the market and get sold and liquidated by Genesis over some period of time. There are a lot of stories like this coming out, but in order to put this in perspective, I want to show you guys one other thing. This is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust information as of the end of the day Friday. At the end of the day Friday, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust had 478,000 Bitcoin. We're less than 1 month into the Bitcoin ETFs being approved. When this Grayscale Trust got approved to be converted to an ETF, they had over 620,000 Bitcoin. So that means they have sold over 140,000 Bitcoin really in the last 3.5 weeks. So I just say that to put this into perspective. Even with this massive dump of over 140,000 Bitcoin by the Grayscale Trust, Bitcoin has basically remained completely sideways. Remember, we're still trading between $41,000 and $44,000, so we've really been very, very sideways. Again, if we go back and look at the year to date, Bitcoin is up 2% on the year, so very little movement, despite the fact that we had to go through liquidation of 140,000 Bitcoin on the Grayscale Trust. So yes, there are some other liquidation events coming. This Genesis event is one of them, and it's going to be maybe 30 or 35,000 Bitcoin. There are a few others out there looming, but it does seem like the appetite for Bitcoin between the rest of the Bitcoin trusts, in particular BlackRock and Fidelity, but also Bitwise and ARK Invest trusts, are having a lot of success. So they've been able to absorb all of this demand and then some. So as you guys see news stories come out like this, they're not to be disregarded, but to put them in perspective, Bitcoin has held up very strong despite a lot of sell pressure that has come on recently. And ultimately, in my opinion, it should be that the ETFs have massive demand pressure put on Bitcoin over the longer period of time. So despite these things that are happening in a really short window of time here, to me, in my opinion, I think we're still going to have a lot of money moving into the Bitcoin ETFs over the rest of 2024. In addition to that, we're only about 2 to 2.5 months away from the Bitcoin halving. So there's a lot of big things still on the horizon for Bitcoin. However, you can see as these things come up, there is massive volatility. There's a lot of FUD out there. I still am seeing a lot of people talk about Bitcoin pulling back to 37,000, 30,000, I've heard a lot. So I'm not necessarily anticipating that. I do think if you take a look at the Bitcoin one-day chart, it would not at all surprise me if Bitcoin were to pull back maybe to $37,000 or $38,000. That was a previous line of resistance back in November of 2023. It turned into support. We really haven't retested it. So, it is possible we have some downward pressure. And again, because it's so hard to predict over the next day or week or month what the price action is going to be on Bitcoin, this is one of the reasons that for me personally, I try to take a dollar cost average approach to investing in both Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. So not financial advice. Again, there's a lot of different ways to trade. I know some of you make money day trading. Some of you make money swing trading. Some people make money using options for the Bitcoin miners. And again, for some of you, this just might be too much volatility altogether. So with all that in mind, that's kind of what's going on with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners right now. Like I said, this week we should get a lot of new information. All the rest of the Bitcoin miners should report their operations from the month of January. So some big information will be coming at us this week. So I will keep the videos coming. I want to thank everybody for watching and remind everybody, if you could please smash the like button. If you have not yet, if you could please consider subscribing to the channel. We're getting very close to 20,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy this content, if you're interested in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.